Diagnosed on Friday night, my birthday on the Sunday. Would it be my last? Happy birthday, Mummy, is the saddest thing I hear. How does life go off the track with one word, cancer? I was only 32 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was married with 4 children, aged 4, 6, 7 and 9. So I was flat out with kinder drop-offs, school activities, raising a young family. My diagnosis was a shock. When I went to my doctors with the lump, they kept saying, "Don't worry, you're too young to have breast cancer." I had a grade 3 tumour, an aggressive breast cancer. My biggest fear was that my children would grow up without a mother and that I would miss out on so much of their lives and of mine. Throughout my treatment, we tried to maintain the normal routines in our life. I am now 4 years on since diagnosis and I enjoy my precious life as I always have.
As we drove home through Melbourne's familiar streets, the surroundings were still the same, yet I felt something huge had changed for me and my husband. Upon this realisation, tears started to fall. I was diagnosed with breast cancer last year, aged 32. I sat there with my husband in a state of shock. I would need surgery, chemotherapy and radiotherapy. I was numb. As we left his room, he handed me the name of a fertility specialist. I had been married only 14 months and we planned to try and start a family. We had to make decisions quickly. It was strange to talk about fertility when I was facing my own mortality. After treatment, I went on holiday to the beach. Looking out at the ocean, I shredded the cards from my radiotherapy appointments, one by one, and threw them in the sea. I cried then.
I was young, the fittest, healthiest and happiest I'd been in a long time. I never thought breast cancer could happen to me. I had so much of life yet to live. I just moved in with my partner and I found out that I had breast cancer. I couldn't believe it. Telling my partner, family and friends was hard, trying to show strength and optimism you don't feel. I still wasn't sure if I wanted children. Even if I wasn't going to, I wasn't ready for menopausal symptoms from chemo, making me old before my time. And I was still establishing a relationship with my partner. It felt as if I was forced to make decisions I wasn't ready for. I discovered a support group for young women with breast cancer. It was great to be able to share my story and fears. They could understand in a way my family and friends couldn't, despite their love and concern. Breast cancer has certainly changed my life. I think of a recurrence, but I focus on the future and try to live and love life. I feel stronger and more self-assured than I ever have.
I still remember the pain in my mother's eyes. Mum was helping me with my bandages. As the final bandage fell to the floor, my mastectomy scar and burns from the radiation became visible. Looking into the mirror, I could see my mum carrying the burden of all mothers, watching her child, in pain, at risk. My breast cancer story begins in 1998, just before Christmas. I had found a peculiar swelling under my left armpit. I knew that I needed to have it checked out. As a young woman, you don't expect to develop breast cancer. My house was being renovated too. My husband, my son and I were living out of a suitcase. In the new year, I went in for a lumpectomy and the lymph nodes removed. The good news? The lymph nodes were clear. The bad news? I had 3 large tumours, not just one, and 2 were the aggressive type. One good thing was that our house was ready the weekend before chemo began. We were a family again. was it your birthday yesterday?
Yeah, I had a nice day.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's always, there's mixed feelings around my birthday because I was diagnosed 2 days before my 33rd birthday 4 years ago.
You know, every time that anniversary comes up, it brings back those feelings of when you were diagnosed, the shock, and, you know, there was something that happened to old people. It was the last thing I expected.
It's a Nana's disease.
Yeah.
For me, it was 15 months ago when I was diagnosed, so I can sort of remember that time in having to face that you had this life-threatening disease and then decide what type of surgery to have and deal with everyone else's reactions to it at the same time.
Yeah, it felt like there were so many decisions to have to make in such a short amount of time. There was the treatment, the implications of the treatment, and there was the fertility issues that we needed to look at.
Making that decision about fertility and what it meant for us, only having one child at the time, it was a real decision. And in the end, I decided what was best for me was to just take our chances.
Yeah.
But I know that you made a different decision.
Yeah, I guess it's such an individual decision to make as to whether you're going to sort of say, well, whatever will be, or you want to try and do everything that you possibly can to preserve your fertility. And it was something extra to have to think about, that if you're an older lady, that issue wouldn't have been something to needed to consider.
And I think being young, one of the things that sort of struck me at the time was just before Christmas. You almost had to put an action plan into place. I had a very young son, he was 4 at the time. So, you know, I had to tell the school, I had to let family know so we could get a babysitting roster happening, work, because that had a huge impact on what I was planning to do the following year. So there was no time to really absorb the information.
As soon as you're told you've got cancer, you want to get in there and remove, you know, the lump, the breast, or whatever. I don't really think that we feel we have the time, and we probably do.
Right. Yeah, all those decisions and things that you think you're going to have plenty of years to think about, and all of a sudden you've got a couple of weeks to think about it. But I think you're right, Mary. You don't realise till afterwards that you probably had enough time, and you know, I wonder whether I would have done things differently now.
I remember going to my first chemotherapy treatment. I thought I was strong and I was doing well, and I signed my admission forms and looked into the room, and I could see all these old people having chemotherapy, and there was this empty seat there, and you know, had my name on it. I could just see that's my seat, and taking those steps to sit down, that was, well, this is the start of it. There's no going back. Once I start chemotherapy, and just the disbelief, the sense of being so young.
And the nurses and the other clinical staff sort of reinforce that, oh, you know, you're young for this. It's like, oh, no, and you don't have to remind me. And looking around, and not only everyone being old but sick, because it's not until then you don't feel sick.
That's right.
And that was hard.
Did you feel sick with your chemo?
No, I was tired and a little bit nauseous, but I actually coped very well with it. I don't know, did you?
No, I was actually quite ill. Not so much vomiting, but feeling that constant sense of nausea.
Yeah.
When I was having treatment, going for a walk sometimes made me feel better than actually doing nothing. Sometimes, sometimes you just don't feel like doing that, but exercise helped me a bit, I think, through treatment.
Jo, your hair's looking great. It's really coming back,
It's starting to grow back again.
Didn't come back curly, did it?
No, it's fairly
Did you have curly hair?
Yeah, really curly. I had that afro for a while.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
I had ringlets. I think the hardest thing with the hair loss was waiting for it to happen. What's it going to look like? What am I going to do? How am I going to go to the kids' school? And am I going to wear a wig? Am I going to wear a bandana?
Yeah.
And that was, you know, scarier than when it actually happened.
When I lost my hair, it was that initial thing of looking in the mirror and having no hair and feeling like, for me it was sort of like around, like, where's Jo gone?
Yeah.
I used to catch my reflection.
It was like, where's she gone to? Like, this isn't me.
Yeah. Was quite well, you know, during chemotherapy, and I went to work, and so I had a wig to be invisible in a sense, so that I didn't have to tell everybody that I was. So most people at work knew anyway, but it just allowed me to blend in with the rest of the world. But I felt like I felt silly with the wig on, but nobody else would have known that but me.
Losing all my body hair made me feel like I was 12 or 13, and so I, you know, would think, well, don't recognise who I am.
Yeah, that free Brazilian.
Yeah. I have to say I felt liberated not having any body hair.
I think it has an impact, the treatment, on how you feel about yourself and sexuality and going through it. You're tired and, I mean, some people don't feel like having sex, other people do. It's sort of
But there's so many body changes, isn't there, with the treatment? You know, dryness and body shape and just how comfortable you feel.
That's right.
That's right.
And I think also it comes back to that confidence. If you're feeling sick and you're not feeling very confident about yourself, and you don't necessarily feel like being intimate with your partner. But on the other hand, you really need that reassurance as well. That for me, I felt like I really needed things to feel like not everything was changing in my life, and that, you know, I could rely on still being, you know, with my partner.
Having had the mastectomy, it was difficult being completely naked and sort of dealing. It wasn't so much dealing with the loss of the breast as such, but it was dealing with the existing breast. While it was a pair, it kind of looked all right, but on its own, you know, it wasn't looking right. So in the initial stages, and probably right up to when I had reconstructive surgery, I'd wear a camisole top. So that was always a good look, the camisole top and the turban to bed, because, you know, it's so cold.
I'm trying to find bathers.
Yeah.
They're all made for really old ladies and really wide legs and just really old-fashioned colours.
I found when I went for my mastectomy bathing suit, verbalising to a complete stranger that I have a missing breast was really hard. You know, you don't expect to be doing it at the age of 33.
And then you finish your treatment, then everyone expects you to pick up where you were how many months ago when you were diagnosed. And I felt like my safety net was taken away because I wasn't seeing doctors every week and having treatment, and it was a little bit scary.
It's that sort of feeling you've lost your innocence and sense of your physical being, I guess, around like, oh, my leg is sore, should I go to the doctor? Or, oh, this is sore. And you notice everything on your body that you probably were never really aware of, like, you know, little things. Like that was probably there before, but when you've had, I think, cancer, you're just a lot more aware of your whole sort of body.
We're 33, we're the prime of our lives and probably our most energetic, and we've got so many things on the go. You know, that you're either a young mum or you're really getting into your career, and all of a sudden that changes.
It sort of affects your sense of identity, of being independent and having, I guess, your work as part of who you are, and felt like part of it sort of been taken away. And if you have been the type of person that has always been, not always, but has been in that other helping role, I know with my work, and has always been the one sort of helping other people through crises, and then you're actually the one who's going through it. It challenges, I think, your identity.
Even just my partner's point of view, I was at home looking after the kids when I was diagnosed. I wasn't at work, so he had to take time off work, and so he kept going back to work and, you know, needing a bit more time to come in for my treatments and or run around for the kids. And I found that really hard because I wanted to look after myself and look after the kids, and I was feeling guilty that he had to take that time off work. And so, you know, it came down to how understanding his workplace was, and the independent side was hard for me because I did everything myself.
For me, that extra financial pressure of relying on one income and having extra expenses that aren't always covered by the health system, that sort of adds extra stress to already a stressful experience.
Also trying to fit the experience of cancer in with your life and your old friends and your close friends and your family. It's kind of weird that it's such a big part of your life now, and that you don't want it to be the only thing.
Friends who we thought were, you know, maybe here, ended up there, and friends who we thought were going to be around for us. It was too hard for them and too scary, and I found that was hard.
Relationships, you know, that get really tested in different ways, whether it's your marriage or your, you know, kids or siblings, cousins or brothers, or, you know, that they are. It's like a real sort of crisis that test all the.
It's like a ripple in the pond, isn't it? You throw a stone and it, you know, ripples out, and it just affects so many people. Because our kids were with us when I was diagnosed, they reacted in, you know, all sorts of ways emotionally, because I wasn't able to protect them a little bit. So we had a counselling session, and the counsellor had a session just with the kids, and I sat outside with my husband, and then she called us in and said, okay, the kids are going to tell you how you can help them. And my 9-year-old, who was my eldest at the time, said to me like this: I want to meet someone who's had breast cancer, whose hair's grown back, I want to come to chemo, and I want to come to radio. And I did. I tracked someone down through the kindergarten who knew someone who had breast cancer, and she came to my house on a weekend and showed the kids her photos of her having lost her hair, and the kids touched her hair, and my son was looking at her breasts saying, "Is that a real bird?" And how did you get that? And was it, from someone else? And so all these questions, and the kids got to actually see, okay, well, this woman, her hair's grown back. She's a mum and she's okay, so my mum will be okay too.
It's funny, kids have a lot of questions, don't they?
Yeah.
I found Christian was very inquisitive as well. So he had a lot of questions which we had to answer and to try and be as truthful as we could. It was age appropriate.
Yeah.
We didn't come out to say, well, I'm going to be all right and make it a blanket statement, but allowed him to understand that, I was having my treatment in order to fight the cancer, and we were trying all these positive things to try and overcome it.
I was just thinking, it's not just that your relationships with your kids that change and it affects, it's relationships between your partner as well. I know that with my partner at the time, it was trying to deal with the way he was coping with the disease, my illness, as well as having to cope with it myself. And his way of coping was, "You'll be right, and let's just move on," which was, fine in a way, because I wanted to believe that as well. But I also sort of needed some space to deal with what was actually happening. It was a weird thing. I don't know whether you guys found that.
And I think men and women possibly deal with things, a little bit differently. Like I know with, my husband and I like to talk a lot about things, and that's the way I cope with, different issues in my life. So I think it's partly sort of that acknowledging that you're different and that you will react, everyone reacts so differently, and that's okay. But it certainly changes dynamics in terms of being, I know being sort of felt like I was more the dependent one, and he was doing all this stuff and working and cooking, and I could see the pressure on him, and there's not a lot of support out there for men to deal with it. But he accessed resources. We went to a partner session, and I know he said it was really helpful to hear other men.
And even new relationships. Being single now, I, at some point have to tell a new partner that this is something that's happened to me and it's a part of my life now, and will always be. When do I do that? At what point do you tell someone that? You don't want to be scaring them straight away in the first date, but sometime you're going to have to. That's something I have to think about.
I found when I was diagnosed, I was quite alienated. I think at that stage it kind of awakened something in me, and that need to find other women to discuss some of the issues.
When I found a support group, it was fantastic, because it was really the first time that I was able to sit and share the way I was feeling with people that were the same as me.
That's right.
Family and friends understand, but they don't. You kind of can't let yourself be yourself, because part of the interaction with your family is having to be strong for them, having them feel like you're going to be okay and you're going to cope well. And that guard, I don't think, can be let down unless you're with people that know what you're really going through.
Did you get any of that, you've got to stay positive, and from different people?
Yeah.
I felt that it came from everywhere.
Yeah. And I sort of felt, I think at one stage, that it was like, I didn't feel, there were days when I didn't feel positive, that it was really hard slog, and I thought, come on, you should be feeling positive.
That's right.
And I wasn't, and I was trying to sort of accept that would, for me, that would pass, and that however I was feeling was, that was... And
you do.
Okay.
There's days when you just feel awful, and then there's days when you feel like you can take it on and move forward.
My soul aged. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing. I don't say, I'm glad I got breast cancer, and I don't resent what happened either. But it's changed the way I am. And I found that difficult, because I'd be sitting at the car park picking up the kids from school, and I didn't feel like I fitted in anymore. And I didn't know where I belonged, because it does change you.
It's only recently that as a family we've started to plan long term. Prior to that, I think we would look into the future. It was only sort of 3 months away, and that was it.
Yeah. To get the confidence to do that again.
To do that.
Yeah. And also to learn to trust your body again as well. Feel like it's let you down in a way. True. What you thought was always you'd be able to rely on it, and once it's let you down once, it's hard to build that trust up again.
I think it helps to open new doors. It closes a lot of old ones. There are certain things that we can't go back to. The doors that have opened have also been really good as well, and I've had an opportunity to sort of take my life into a really different direction.
And it was part of my self-healing was to volunteer and just to help other women who've been through the diagnosis, especially young women, because I know how important it was for me and how I craved to meet other young women and talk to them about their experience.
It also empowers you as well. Like lots of things I've done since my diagnosis, which I don't think I would have done had I not been diagnosed. I would have still been in that rat race or on that treadmill and not really taken stock.
Life isn't going to be normal again, and it's about trying to recreate something different. You know, life is so precious that it's exciting, but on the other hand, it can be quite daunting and quite overwhelming, scary to think about. Well, this is precious. What do I really want?